Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Beyond the Superficial. We are chiropractors and functional medicine practitioners at Synapse Center for Health and Healing, located in Eagan, Minnesota. Information shared in this podcast is not intended to diagnose or treat any medical conditions. Please consult with a primary care provider before engaging in any new activity or protocol. With that in mind, let's dive into this episode.
Welcome to another episode of Beyond the Superficial here at Synapse Center for Health and Healing in Eagan, Minnesota. My name is Dr. Amber Janetsky. I'm a chiropractor and functional neurologist here at the clinic. I also do functional medicine, and acupuncture. And we also have...
Yeah, my name is Ellie. I'm the trauma practitioner and wellness coach here at Synapse.
And I'm Dr. Ellie. I'm the pelvic floor chiropractor and then also hormonal nutritionist. So we're going to be talking about hormones today. We're going to focus particularly about cycling women. We're going to talk through different aspects of each phase of the cycle, kind of break it down about what a typical woman experiences during her period and menstrual phase. Now, of course, this is the typical woman, so if you feel like you're outside of it, it's not necessarily a standard of how you should expect to have your menstrual cycle, but this is just kind of a nice outline of how women can live their life during their menstrual cycles.
Because it helps, right? If you know what to expect, you can help it out.
Yeah.
With diet, lifestyle, and that's the stuff we're going to talk about. So, yeah.
I think big picture. What's going on is that women experience hormones throughout a 28-ish day cycle. Now that's really important because we have ebbs and flows of those hormones compared to a typical man experiences those hormones within 24 hours. And so our society is kind of around that we should be able to function the exact same way every day like a man should, and in reality that's not really the case.
Yeah. No. You're right. End of podcast. No, I'm just kidding. So where would you start with explaining the different cycle time periods?
So let's start with follicular. So this is after you have your menstruation, kind of at the beginning. During this phase, we start to see that the hormones start to rise again. Mm-hmm. This is when women typically feel really good. They feel energized. We're getting that boost of those hormones again. So they're starting to feel more like themselves again after having those low of that menstrual cycle. Mm-hmm. During this phase, there are kind of some different recommendations. Do you want to talk about exercise?
Yeah, so this is a time where you can really push it in your exercise routine. So if you are doing hard HIIT classes like Warrior Sculpt or any kind of HIIT kind of class, heavy weights, this is your time to shine. So you can really push it here. You've got good energy, good hormones, and so great time to improve your training. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's very true. Especially because the hormones are so high, you definitely really feel that high energy. Mm-hmm. So it might as well take advantage. This is a time that you can really push yourself. Often women like to push themselves throughout the whole cycle. So we're going to talk about that later. Yeah. But this is the time that you really can push yourself and your body can handle it well.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Are there different emotional factors during the follicular phase?
Yeah, with follicular, usually women are a little bit more creative. This is where you have more social energy. You want to get out. This is where I like to work with clients on talking about what do you want out of life. Let's actually create some more vision. It's easier for us to desire a little bit more instead of focusing on disappointments or having not enough capacity in our nervous system with our stress chemicals and our stress hormones. So usually, like I said, going, playing, being more social, getting out, being more creative are all really great things.
I always feel like the world just makes a little bit more sense during this time. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's usually when I hear clients say, this is when I feel most like myself for women.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know if we want to talk about this now or maybe at the end, but is if like diet and what you can do during this time too. Oftentimes I have women coming in who are fasting, and this is the best time to practice fasting as long as your cortisol levels are in check. And so working with a provider to see how your cortisol levels are and your blood sugar regulation. But this is a great time to push that fasting time and make those benefits and gains.
Yeah, exactly. Your body actually needs a little less energy during this phase. Mm-hmm. So it gets on really well with fasting during this because of those extra hormones are producing that energy, so you don't necessarily need as much food necessarily. Mm-hmm. During this phase, it's also really important to be focusing on vegetables, especially those cruciferous, high-fiber vegetables. You want to be eliminating a bowel every single day. I mean, throughout the course of your month, you should be. But in particular, especially during this phase, because you're producing so many hormones, you eliminate your hormones through your feces. So you want to make sure that you eliminate every single day. So to do that is to eat high fiber, drink a lot of water, make sure that you're well hydrated to be able to pass a bowel.
Yes, good.
Very good. Move on to ovulation.
Sounds good.
Okay, this is where we are flourishing as women. Unfortunately, it's about 2 to 3 days max, but our hormones are the top. Our testosterone's really good. This is kind of the most equivalent to how men typically feel. So this is when you start to feel amazing. You want to go out on a date. This is typically when you feel the most sexual too, so that's always a fun added bonus.
Yeah, exactly. That's because your body is getting ready for getting pregnant. And so, yeah, all of that stuff starts to happen. Again, this is still a great time to continue to work out, continue to fast, no problems there.
I see for women, this is exactly the moment where it's so much easier for us to ask for what we need. Sometimes women will doubt themselves, or because of our hormones, we're nurturing other people, we're putting other people first. It's so deeply connected with our sense of safety and our nervous system. But with ovulation, that's when it's so much easier for us to say, hey, this is what I need, or this is what I would like. Emotionally and socially, relationally, that's also very much there, where we can be more brave, we can be more fearless, we can connect a little bit more. This is the time to bulk up your social calendar, and then have the hard conversations. Sometimes it's all about timing, and this is the time where you might have more emotional capacity. Cortisol isn't as, estrogen is helping us regulate cortisol, so it's not just kind of whenever we're stressed, it's not just filtering and living in our body. We can move through it so much easier and have that hard conversation, stay present, and then afterwards still be okay. Because relational safety is so deeply connected to, like I said, for women, whether we feel good or bad, and how our cortisol connects to some of our hormones.
Great. Yeah, and then now we've ovulated and we're moving into the luteal phase. So hormones are starting to now drop, and we start to notice that if you're paying attention, and some things start to change.
Yeah, so this is kind of the bummer phase, I like to think about it. Typically, I like to think about luteal phase in kind of 2 phases. It's not technically in 2 phases, but during that first week of luteal phase, you still have a good amount of energy, but during that second week of the luteal phase, that's when it really starts to go down a lot. This is typically when you have PMS, PMDD, people who have PCOS, that's really when their symptoms are really exacerbated. And this is because of the relationship of the progesterone and the estrogen during this phase. Typically, progesterone should be rising during this phase, and so if you don't have enough, that is when you start to have those PMS symptoms start coming to play. So how should you do the exercise?
Yeah. So this is when we start to slow down a little bit. From the luteal phase, continuing into bleeding, we don't have the energy. And so this is a great time to do things like long walks, yoga, breath work, just cutting down that high intensity workout. Your body just can't repair as well as it should. You just don't have that energy. And it's if you do those exercises, you might feel more wiped out, more tired. You just don't have the hormones high enough, because when you work out, you actually are burning some of those hormones, and so if it's already dropping, then you burn it more. You're just dropping it more. So it's just a great time to take it easy. Great time to kind of stop the fasting, take a little break. You can kind of gauge that, but typically I do, if there's any not feeling well on the fasting, I have people pause on it during this cycle time. And it's just, I usually recommend doing something like an anti-inflammatory or a Mediterranean type diet to help cut down on that inflammation, because right now too your prostaglandins are increasing, and so that's just inflammation, and so that's one thing that can cause things like the mood dysregulation, the cramps, is that inflammation. So if we can cut that down, you have a much better success in this time of the cycle.
Yeah, kind of going off of that, it's a lot of women struggle with PMS. PMDD, feeling very emotional during this phase. And I think our society has really said that that's normal, right? Like if you watch TV, it's like, oh, if a woman is hysteric, oh, she must be on her period. Or if you're cranky, you must be on your period. But in reality, that doesn't necessarily have to be the case.
No.
And it really shouldn't be the case. A healthy woman should be able to go through the luteal phase. And yes, you'll have a little bit of less energy, but you shouldn't be having those extremely painful cramps. You shouldn't have those huge mood swings. This is something that we really work with, and we both have such a huge passion for, about encouraging women to really feel their best selves throughout their whole cycle. So kind of working with, in particular, the luteal phase to slow down and allow yourself to give yourself that break. It sounds very not culturally like American, you know, we, especially
Push
American
through.
women,
Yeah.
we push ourselves, right? That's
Yeah.
how we thrive. Boss women, which is amazing. I mean, I love that. But during the luteal phase, this is when we can start to say no and slow down, and that is when we really start to see huge changes in the hormones. And you can talk a lot more in depth about that.
I was going to say that this is where rest and boundaries are your best friend, and it's so hard because that's the last thing you want to do, right? Especially in a society where it's go, go, go. You were able to have the energy earlier, now it's a new week, and you don't. It's tough, especially if we're working women and you're expected to still show up. But knowing that, right, this is where we actually get to honor our body's wisdom, slow down. Our hormones are slowing down. We're expected, or our body's asking us to slow down. And this is where for some women, right, we can be a little bit more, less soft, a little bit more direct. Some women will have, especially if there's that PMS, PMDD component, right, there actually could be more bouts of anger, rage, being more emotional, where one moment we're really sad and then we go into, hey, that's not actually okay. That's your body asking to create some boundaries. So what I usually say, right, with society, they often say, well, it's just your period. Let's just ignore her and then she'll bounce back. There's actually a lot of wisdom in this phase. It's our body also letting us know, hey, this didn't serve me, whether it was this pattern or this thing that I did. Maybe it was how I was treated, and when I had more hormones, I was okay with it. And now it's kind of coming back around and saying, that actually crossed something for me, and I don't want to bring that forward. And so I like to encourage women, right, actually tune in. This is your moment to really slow down. Sometimes it's not filling up your social calendar. You might not have the energy for it. It might be a little bit more riling up for you. This is a time to slow down, take time for yourself, journal through some things, see what you need to release, recognize where can I have some better boundaries, because boundaries are not about keeping others out or keeping connection away. It's actually about protecting the love that we have so that we can continue to show up and pour in. But in a phase where we don't have a lot of capacity, right, this is where I encourage women to be a little bit more selfish, get poured into, because we really can't give away what we haven't received. So our body's asking us of it. Don't push through, and like I said, just be more gentle.
I love that. That's totally shifting the framework of how women typically view the period. It's working with it and not against it, like learning from the wisdom that it has.
Yeah, and that goes along with the nervous system, and we've touched on this in other podcasts, but hormones help regulate the nervous system, and one of those areas is your amygdala. And so when we start to have those hormones drop, then we have a dysregulation of that nervous system. And that's a great point, because I've had patients, hey, they're doing great. No, I don't have any past traumas. No, I don't have any issues. And then for whatever, there's many reasons for this, whether you're sick or something like this, the hormones are dropping, some of that comes up. And you have to understand, like, that's always there. But your body and your nervous system is doing a really good job of suppressing it, kind of. And then, like you said, it starts to pop up during this time. And so it's a great time, to kind of, ooh, wow, I didn't know that was there. Recognize it, name it, do some of the things like you said, to try and get rid of it. Because then if you can deal with it, then you don't have to deal with it all the time. And then you can use that energy for other things. So yeah, that's great. And then inflammation goes along with that. When inflammation starts to rise, again, you have brain inflammation, you have body inflammation. And I always see it as if someone is having those strong PMS symptoms, I just look to there's inflammation from something. And I've mentioned this before, amazing thing of just changing from regular tampons to organic tampons. Took rid of my excuse me, got rid of my cramps amazingly. And then just even little things with what you eat. Going out to a fast food restaurant, you will probably, if you start paying attention to that, you will notice your cramps increase. But then if you start to eat anti-inflammatory foods, you start to notice less of that. And so just kind of knowing that that can cause a worsening of your symptoms, if you pay attention to it, you'll start to see that pattern and you can start to make changes. The changes are easier to make when you start to make that connection with it.
I almost think of how your body's demanding some attention at that moment, because even with alcohol, with caffeine, the stimulants that would allow us to keep going, our body, if we do that, it makes luteal sometimes a little bit more tumultuous for women, but then also when they're on their period, it can worsen symptoms so much more. And so it's interesting how, like I mentioned, our body is saying, hey, slow down, pay attention, be a little bit more selfish. Women are often containing space for others. Like I said, that estrogen, right, can make us really, really nurturing. But this is an invitation for us to be contained as well. And so even socially, really inviting, some more nourishing support. Maybe it's not your spouse. Maybe it's actually your sister or your best friend, really scheduling time to do that. And it's totally okay to be a little bit more antisocial in that, in that phase where you might want to do some more of your own things. You might want to color. You might want to watch a show and not be as productive because your body just doesn't want to do that. And it's going to only bite you in the butt later if you don't.
And nervous system regulation, those are some things to do now too, like the meditation, prayer. Not that you wouldn't do that every day, but definitely just noticing if you're on edge. Maybe you need to take 10 minutes to do some just prayer work, meditation, breath work to just kind of get you reset. And an easy thing to do too is just take 1 to 2 minutes of deep breaths. Maybe every time you go to the bathroom during this time, you just take that moment to bring that cortisol down a little bit so you can be a little bit more regulated. So paying attention to making that a priority during this time would be good.
Another really good way that you can take a little bit more space is to eat a little bit more food. So during the luteal phase, you actually burn more calories. There's a lot of research showing that the average woman just typically eats about 100 to 200 more calories during this phase. So if you are more hungry, that's normal. Take that space, allow that, say, yeah, I'm going through my luteal phase, I'm gonna eat a little bit more, and really satiate your body. Doing with that Mediterranean diet, not with the fast foods,
Right.
but really treating her like the queen that she is.
Yeah, and that's tied to, my understanding is that estrogen, as it drops, your blood sugar regulation drops. And so you do get a drop in that blood sugar, making you more hungry. So there's a reason that you feel hungry. It's not just low willpower or something like that. There's a reason behind it. Yeah.
That's something that happens so often too, kind of what you said with the nervous system, taking that cap off, and when we had capacity, we didn't. Something to be really mindful of is even if in other phases you feel really good, right, all of a sudden when we're losing some willpower, things are changing really fast. We might not be as social anymore. We might have more firm boundaries. We might be not as soft and kind in our response or in our true feelings. Just really being mindful and watching for where shame pops up, because often shame is what spirals and keeps our nervous system stuck in dysregulation. And shame will say, well, what's wrong with you? Why aren't you able to, stand up for yourself or keep up? Why are you so weak? And I like to kind of describe how our heart is kind of like a container, right? In our nervous system, it needs to be fueled in order for us to give back. And with luteal, we're depleted. We're kind of at the bottom. And our body's saying, okay, this is a time for me to just receive and take some in so that I can actually give something back. And how often for women they get to that bottom depleted area, and instead of realizing, oh, well, my heart was created to be loved and I'm running a little low on that, so why don't I just slow down and receive some more? Instead, part of your nervous system is your belief system, and if your beliefs, your experiences are rooted in we'll try harder, do better, you're only as loved as you are useful or productive. That can be really hard for women emotionally. That's where a lot of trauma resurgence can happen. And so this is also a really good phase for if you're seeing a therapist, if you're seeing a counselor, if you're having support, even scheduling your support around that so that you are consistently seeing someone who is nourishing, who is able to hold space for you in that luteal phase.
Yeah. I was going to mention too, because we talk about, taking it easy during this time, but I still would encourage some movement, like walking and yoga, like I said, because that does help move that lymph system that can sometimes get bogged down during this time too. When you move that muscle, you flush out that lymph, helps remove waste products, gets the blood going. You get the breath work that can help stabilize and stimulate the vagus nerve for better mood regulation. So I guess I, for the most part, recommend some movement during this time, not completely like, okay, I'm just going to stay in bed now. But yeah, getting up and move can help.
Yeah, so we had a lot to say about the luteal phase. It's kind of one of the most doozy phases.
Yeah.
It is the longest phase. So that's when we really start to see if you do have hormonal dysfunction, that's when it really starts to gear its head and that you can really see it. And then we're going to go on to the menstrual phase. So the menstrual phase is the first phase of the cycle. It's day 1. The first day that you bleed, that's day 1. And this is the phase that you get to be even more gentle with yourself. The inflammation is typically higher during this, so taking more naps, sleeping more, really being proactive about that anti-inflammatory diet really has a lot to do with this. And yeah, just be kind with yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, and diet and exercise follows the same recommendations as in the luteal phase as far as my recommendations go. Still going into that walking, yoga, slower down, and sticking with that nourishing diet versus a fasting or anything that can cause increased stress.
Yeah, and from my perspective, this is really a season or a time to just slow down, be gentle with yourself. Because if you think about it, you're bleeding, you're losing nutrients, you're losing blood, your body's not going to be able to push as hard. And this is where your nervous system is probably the most kind of vulnerable, where you actually need to be nurtured and cared for if you're having cramps or if you're having some kind of symptoms, which again we talked about, not necessarily normal, but this is a time for us to, in luteal, our body's asking us for some bigger boundaries so we can draw in some more support. This is our time when we can actually lean on that support. And so sometimes that looks like reaching out to a friend. Something that I recommend is actually creating a menu list of items. So I call it the pleasure list, right? I wouldn't necessarily do it in the menstrual phase. You could always try, but I would recommend doing it when you have more capacity. And then just starting a list of at least 25 things that bring you pleasure in the moment. So things that bring you joy. It could be something as simple as tea in the morning, watching the sunrise, snuggly blankets. It could be big things too, taking a trip, being by water, and just making that list for yourself. And that way you have something to kind of nourish off, especially when it's harder for you to maybe recognize what you need. It's harder to stand up for yourself. You want comfort, you want peace. And so that list can be really helpful to run through and recognize, okay, well for today, I'm not going to do a strenuous workout. Right, in luteal, possibly prepping some of the meals because it might be a little bit harder, just not as motivating to cook these big grandiose meals for ourselves. But what can I do to nourish myself? What can I do that brings me joy? Where I'm not pushing myself, but actually, like I said, receiving and practicing that nourishment.
Yeah, and I love that you say do it before this phase, so it's ready, because you don't want to, it's harder to have that capacity to actually do that, but if the list is already made, you just can go to it and pick 1 or 2 things and run with it. Yep. Sounds great.
During this phase too, I kind of want to emphasize that it's okay if your house is a little bit more messy. You know, like you can push it off a couple of days. The dishes will eventually get done. So just kind of be more gentle with yourself. During the first day of my menstrual cycle, I intentionally block it off and I do nothing. I go home and I lay on the couch and I just relax. And that I feel like really refuels me so that I can handle the rest of the menstrual phase where I do have to, go out and be a part of society, but I really do try to protect that first day as much as I can, just to give myself 1 day a month where it's just an excuse to do nothing. And that's the fun part, is that it's good for you during this phase to do not that much. I mean, gentle walks and yoga, but overall, like socially, it's okay to say no. And that's what I really love about this, is because it's so countercultural. It's encouraging us to slow down. And when we slow down during the menstrual phase and during the luteal phase, you'll notice that your energy during the follicular phase and ovulation is wildly higher. Yeah. So it all balances out because you'll have more energy. You can compensate for what you don't do to give yourself this time and this space. So we're kind of retraining how we really think about time. It's not 24 hours what you can do, but within a whole month. And that's kind of the really fun part about working with our cycles. It gives us grace, it gives us energy, and it really just allows us to connect with our deeper selves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I know this again is a sign that there's inflammation or something else dysregulated, but oftentimes it can be like, oh my gosh, the world is ending kind of thought. And if you know that that's part of what's going on, you can talk to yourself and be like, this is what it is, and it's going to be better in a day or two, and I can get through this. But again, that can be a sign that there is something that we need to address with nutrition, lifestyle, that kind of thing. But yeah, being aware that it's going to happen can just help.
And to your point, right, the more we feed into that and say this is countercultural because I'm going to live by my cycle, we actually teach people how to approach us and recognize that women are dynamic in their cycle, and it does change in a matter of a month. And so instead of even with our partners, with our friends, with our family, expecting them to treat us the same way every time, they can also recognize women ebb and flow. That's the beauty of being a woman. That's the beauty of holding something that ebbs and flows. It's hard to hold, but we can invite support in instead of the expectation of, well, why am I not able to hold it together, or why do I need to lean on people more in some seasons than not?
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you guys feel like you either resonate with any of these, feel free to reach out to us. If you also notice that you do have really bad PMS, PMDD, different hormonal dysfunctions, and you want to get that tested, we do a lot of testing to figure out which hormones are off, but also why your hormones are off, which is just as important too.
Yeah, we've got a couple of great tests. We can even do serum blood tests, or blood tests for the hormones. We do the Dutch test. There's the cycle mapping through the Dutch test. That one kind of shows a whole month of how things are going, so you can kind of pinpoint when your symptoms are and what the hormones were doing during that time. So yeah, definitely some great resources.
Yeah, and when you work with us too on working with your hormones, it's never just about the hormones in particular.
Yeah.
It's always about the whole body system.
Holistic,
So
yes.
how's your liver working? How's your gut working? Your thyroid? There's always multiple factors when it comes to addressing the hormones. So that's why I really like this holistic approach. Just be a little bit cautious if people are out there and they're just focusing on the hormones.
Yeah.
That dysfunction typically comes back because you're
Yeah.
not getting to the root cause.
Right. Yep.
Hormones just don't go out of balance.
Right. You got it.
Very good. Well, thanks for joining us today, guys.
Yeah. Our next episode is going to be about estrogen dominance. So go ahead and join on. Thank you.
That concludes today's episode of Beyond the Superficial. Thank you for joining us, and stay tuned for more episodes. For more information, please visit our website, www.officialsynapse.com, your partners in healthy living for optimal life. We would love to hear from you on how our podcast might be impacting your life. We also want to hear what interests you. Please leave your feedback on our media page at www.officialsynapse.com. Thanks again for listening, and we'll catch you in the next episode.